Kasim, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Happy New Year. I hope all of you had a restful break. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kasim, and I'm a volunteer ambassador with Results Canada. I'll be moderating tonight's program. Before we start, I'd like to start by saying that Results Canada is located on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. For generations, the Algonquin people have been stewards of this land, caring for its waters, forests, and communities long before colonial borders were drawn. As I benefit from being here, I commit to deepening my understanding of Indigenous histories, cultures, and ongoing struggles for justice. A land acknowledgement is not just words, it is a call to action. And I strive to support Indigenous sovereignty, listen to Indigenous voices, and work toward reconciliation in meaningful ways. Just some quick notes about a couple of upcoming events. Please make sure to register for the February Action Kickoff Call, which is on February 5th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And additionally, on February 8th, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, join the Results International Learning Exchange to meet virtually with other volunteer advocates from Results US, Results UK, and Results Australia. Additionally, please remember to report your volunteer actions at the end of the month or right before you take your monthly actions. Reporting volunteer actions is mandatory as it's one of the ways to measure the impacts volunteers have on our campaigns. And switching gears, I'd like to hand it off to Taryn, who is the Results Executive Director.
Thanks, Kasim. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. And nice to see you all. Full disclosure, I got back I decided one of the things I was going to do in the new year was join a winter running club in Ottawa, where it is very snowy and cold. And I got back from my run like 5 minutes ago. So I'm a little sweaty, but I'm very happy to be here. It was 3 degrees, which is 25 degrees warmer than it was last week. So things are looking up, at least on that front. But very excited to see you all in a new year. Last year was a very eventful year. For those of you that also might have taken a little bit of holidays, it seems like it happened so long ago. But we had a federal election. We saw massive, disruptions within the international aid sector with massive cuts, but we also had a lot of big wins last year. As a reminder of kind of all the things we accomplished last year, we'll be publishing soon the Parliamentary Year in Review. So that's a really good report that we send to every member of Parliament and senator, and is kind of an outlook of everything that happened last year on the Parliamentary Fund as a way to kind of encourage them to keep taking action and to keep kind of educating themselves and working with results. So stay tuned for that because that will be coming out soon, and I think it's a really good document that can show everything that we did last year. But then turning to 2026, so tonight you'll get a chance to hear from Ekta, who's going to talk about kind of the exciting campaigns that are coming up. As you can imagine, our work across, health equity, education, economic inclusion is just so much more important now than ever, even if it's fallen a little bit off the headlines as kind of the world is focusing on bigger geopolitical issues. The work still needs to get done, and there's a lot of work we need to do in terms of catching up and making progress on some of the areas that were really disrupted last year, particularly with the cuts from USAID, but also from some other donors. So I think we have some really high impact campaigns that will make a huge difference. But it's so important that we kind of keep our feet on the pedal. Another exciting thing about this year is it's Results Canada's 40th anniversary, which is amazing. A lot has been accomplished in the 40 years, and I think we're going to have some time over the year to celebrate those accomplishments, reflect back. So stay tuned for that. Well, we're going to have a lot of many of you have already been, I think, outreach to the team, and we're kind of taking stock in some of the history of results, but also looking towards where we can go next and what some of the exciting touch points that we're going to have throughout the year. So we'll be able to talk more about that, but everything from kind of a 40th anniversary fundraising campaign to some interesting, documents and videos, try to do some more in-person events over the year. I think we will wait to have our bigger, in-person volunteer retreat until 2027, as we typically do biannually. So in the spring, but we will try to have some touch points throughout this year that we can all kind of celebrate together at the same time. So I'm really excited about that as well. So with that, I know we want to kind of dive into what we're going to be working on in the next coming months. So maybe I will pass it back to Kasim, who will be able to introduce ECTA, but just really nice to see you all and thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Taryn. That was great. I'd like to now introduce Ekta, who is Results' Senior Manager of Advocacy and Global Health.
Thanks so much, Kasim. I have a presentation, so please, can you share the presentation and then we'll get started. All right.
Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Okay.
Can you jump to the slide, slide 3, please? Thanks so much. So I thought before we dive into our call to action and our campaign plan for this year, I want us to pause for a bit and reflect on what happened last year. I know Taryn did flag a couple of challenges we had. Last year, it wasn't an easy time for the world. Globally, international assistance was thrown into complete chaos. Decisions by the US administration to dismantle USAID and the process of withdrawing from WHO and other multilateral organizations have left countless life-saving programs at risk and continues to threaten millions of lives. We still have news emerging of the Trump administration also pulling support from 66 international organizations and treaties, which is quite concerning. And as Taryn mentioned, we've also seen other traditional donor countries also following suit with similar cuts. And last year here in Canada, we faced our own set of challenges. We had a federal election, a new government with new priorities, trade tensions with the US, and cuts to international assistance, despite clear commitments from Prime Minister Carney not to walk away from global leadership. So all this also unfolded against the backdrop of escalating conflicts and climate change, reversing decades of progress for the world's most marginalized communities. The reason why I flagged all these issues is I think this is the part that really matters because progress still happened and this progress didn't happen by accidents, but because of sustained and collective advocacy by all of you. And some of you may know last year we launched the Together We Lead campaign, a campaign we grounded in the belief that Canada can and must bring the world together in moments of uncertainty. And despite an incredibly challenging political context, that advocacy that we all drove really delivered results. So we did see Canada stepping up with investments in immunization, nutrition, and the fight to end infectious diseases like TB, AIDS, and malaria. And were these commitments perfect? Not really. And did we fall short of some of what we hoped for? Absolutely. But every dollar invested did save lives, and every commitment actually protected progress. So I think we can all be proud on that front. So 2025 as a year really reminded us of something essential. It reminded us that true leadership doesn't really disappear in challenging times. It just gets tested in these times. And because of the work of all of us here, Canada did not completely step away. Like I said, we can be proud of playing a big role in this step. And because of that, community health workers like Josephine, who you see in the picture, can continue on with her work despite challenges. And again, like I said, we have our advocacy in Canada, but there are advocates around the world fighting this fight alongside us. So that's a foundation we are building on for a campaign this year, and it's why what comes next really matters to all of us and the world writ large. So please, can you go to the next slide, please? So as we turn to 2026, we need to know where we are at and what we are working with, because this is really a turning point. We are at a pivotal moment in history. So for the first time in the century, this is tragic. The number of children dying before their fifth birthday is projected to rise. In 2025 alone, as many as 4.8 million children may have died. That's 200,000 more than the year before. And we'll have the final report for this in 2026. And I think what is important for us to remember that, again, this is not a number, this is not a statistic. This is a warning sign for us and the world. And it's important for all of us to remember that every number is a child here. And at the same time, we also know on the education front that 272 million children are missing out on school, despite overwhelming evidence that education is not only foundational to learning, but also to health, stability, and peace as well. And here's a frustrating truth. This is not happening because solutions don't really exist. We actually belong to a generation that has access to the most advanced science and innovation in human history. Children are dying because countries are just not caring enough and funds are being pulled back. And this is where our role as advocates really, really matters. So, for example, if we also look at G7 countries, which includes Canada, which is all these G7 countries are responsible for roughly 3/4 of international assistance. So, the international assistance from all these countries are projected to decrease by 28% in 2026. This again is a shocking stat because if global health funding falls by just 20%, we could see as many as 12 million more children die by 2045. And again, these deaths will happen from causes we actually know how to prevent. And if there's a 30% cut, that number rises to 16 million lives lost by 2045. Again, important for us to remember that there's a child behind every number. Education also faces the same threat with projected cuts of 24%. As many as 6 million additional children could be pushed out of school by the end of 2026. And nearly a third of them will be in crisis-affected setting. So this is the moment we are in. We are at a pivotal point, but it's not too late to reverse this. The choice our government makes now will decide whether this year becomes the year we reverse the course or the year we just accepted preventable loss as being inevitable. So that's why what we do this year really, really matters. Next slide, please. So before we talk about what we're asking for, I think it's important to remember something powerful. The world knows how to save lives. As Taryn mentioned, Results is marking its 40th anniversary. And through these years, we've really seen the world change. For example, over the last 25 years, extreme poverty was cut by nearly half. Child deaths were reduced by 50%. Polio was pushed to the brink of eradication. And millions more young children have access to higher education. And we all know what happened when COVID-19 hit as well. Science delivered multiple vaccines in less than a year, which took decades before. And that same innovation is now driving us closer to the first new tuberculosis vaccine in a century, something we are super excited about given the advocacy we do around TB. And again, none of this progress happened by accident. It wasn't just about the money. It's because governments chose to care and they chose to drive progress. And they prioritize this in their list of priorities. And the message, at least for me, that emerges from this is that progress is possible even when budgets are tight, even when the political context is challenging. Again, this is a matter of choice and the choice we make today. Next slide, please. So this brings us to our campaign and our call to action. 2025 was a testament that even in a challenging political climate within Canada or globally, we can all still make a difference. So that's why Results Canada throughout the year will be calling on Canada to invest in building resilient health and education systems, which is particularly important given the rising conflict and climate change we experience, and generally the funding uncertainty. So more specifically, we will be calling on Canada to invest in proven life-saving mechanisms like the Global Financing Facility for Women and Adults and Children that helps strengthen primary health care. We'll also be calling on the government to invest in the Child Nutrition Fund that provides more holistic nutrition interventions, and the Global Partnership for Education that focuses on increasing access, improving learning, and ensuring equity for marginalized children, especially girls in crisis-affected contexts. The second area we will be highlighting and working on is science and innovation. And like I mentioned, there's some breakthroughs that are happening in the vaccine space, including around TB. And if if something leaves a mark within a generation, it's vaccines. In a single lifetime, they've basically reshaped childhood. So, I mean, that's exciting for us to work on. And by the 2030, we could see science end malaria and TB, diseases that continue to kill millions of people in this world. So again, science and innovation is an area we'll work on this year. But to do this, we need Canada to step up. We want them to strengthen international assistance by one, yes, reversing the cuts we saw last year, but also making smart investments. All the initiatives I just mentioned, they basically deliver solid impact, and there's evidence to back it as well, and they're also quite cost effective. And again, vaccines are a really good example for this. We've seen the impact it's had in bringing down child mortality rates across the world. So the question for us is not whether this will work, but will Canada choose to lead at this pivotal moment? Next slide, please. So our ask in January is for Canada to defend progress by strengthening international assistance to close gaps in healthcare and education for women and children, fight malnutrition, boost research to ensure everyone everywhere has the chance to thrive. This CTA will really help set the stage for us and for Canada to make smart investments. So throughout the year, we'll identify opportunities for Canada to invest in these areas. Next slide, please. So it's important for us to collectively let our decision makers know that the issue we care about, be it health, education, or economic inclusion, fit within the priorities they've identified. And so some of the priorities the Canadian government has identified as trade, economic resilience, and global health security. So it's important for us to let our decision makers know, for example, that health is security, education is trade, and solidarity still matters. That's how we made all the progress we've seen so far. So in our January CTA, one of the first actions we've listed is to connect with your MPs. Some of you may know MPs regularly share updates on their work in Ottawa, but also in their community through their newsletters, where they also highlight local events and opportunities to engage. So signing up for their newsletters will be a good starting point for you to engage with them. So, and please do also follow them on social media to track their engagements. And you can find your MP by visiting MP's newsletter by visiting the House of Commons website. So you'll find the contact information for your MPs there. The second action we are asking all of you to take is to publish an LTE It's important for you to focus your LT on the importance of international assistance in Canada's broader foreign policy, including linking it to trade, security, and prosperity. And you can choose one of the issues we've listed in the January CTA. One is closing gaps in healthcare for women and children. Second is fighting malnutrition. Third is boosting research in vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics. And fourth is strengthening access to a quality education so all children can learn. And you can also use the LTE to hook it to key moments that in Jan and February, including the International Day of Education, the World Economic Forum, and the International Development Week in the first week of February. Next slide, please. The third action is for you to share a post on social media calling on Canada to defend decades of progress in 2026 by strengthening international assistance. And don't forget to tag your MP as well in these posts. I think it's important for us to remember that every post, every share helps build momentum and raise awareness, and also like show our leaders that Canadians really, really care. Last slide, please. With this, I'm done with the presentation, and I'm happy to take questions. But I think it's important for all of us to remember that we belong to a generation where we have the innovation, we have the science to make a difference. And I think like it's important for us to generate the political will and generate the resources to back the science and the innovations as well. And we've made a difference in the past, and we can do it again. And this time it will be a lot faster, smarter, and more affordable. But to make this happen, we need to act quickly. And the moment for that is now. And I'm proud to be working alongside all of you to drive this movement forward. So I'm going to pause there and see if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Ekta. Just seeing how we're sort of regressing is so hard to see, especially after so much progress. And I know for myself, this sort of drives me to do better and do more for Latins. So we do have time for questions. So you can put your questions in the chat box, or you can just raise your hand and we'll call you up. I think in the chat box, Nishal has a question for you, Ekta.
Yeah, I see with projected G7 8 cuts, how do we keep fellow advocates motivated when the political headwinds feel so strong? I know, like I said, I mean, this was the same last year. Like last year, we had a disastrous start to the year where like Trump came in and like he just changed the world. And he set the standard so low that anything above that passed. So I feel like, I mean, despite all that, despite those hurdles, we still managed to get an announcement from Canada for nutrition. We still managed to get an announcement for the Global Fund. So I think like it's also like looking back, we're not starting from scratch. We are building on whatever we've done in the past. So over the last 20 years, we've seen like the world progressing, and it's not like there weren't challenges in the past as well. I mean, there was a point where like HIV/AIDS was considered death knell for people, but we still managed to make progress over the last 20 years. So I think like if it's important for us to like focus on the progress we've made, and also like reminding the governments of their legacy. Like Canada is the one who started the roll out the Muskoka Initiative. Canada is the one who initiated the Charlevoix Declaration. So I think it's important for us to also remind our decision makers of things that they've started, like what we are known for as well. And yes, the goalkeepers report is super like informative and inspiring as well. It just shows how much progress we've made.
Sorry, Riha wants to know, is it possible to have background reading material that details the statistics to bring authenticity and a wrong background to our ask? I guess what Taryn shared does kind of reflect that.
Yeah, I would start with that
Um,
report. It's honestly very powerful and it has like a bunch of statistics on kind of the state of where we're at in terms of preventable child deaths. And you know, we talked a lot about deaths of children under 5, and because it's such a marker of so many different issues when it comes to poverty, everything from health, nutrition, education, gender equality, that it's really kind of a canary in the coal mine in terms of seeing how we're doing on a lot of these areas. So I really recommend everybody to read it because it has a bunch of really good, well, depressing, but good statistics. But also, I think to Ekta's point before, and the great question around what do we do in the face of aid cuts, there are so many exciting innovations and scientific breakthroughs that can really have an impact on these issues. And that will enable us to still make a lot of progress, even if we have to shift the way we're thinking about traditional aid and finding kind of untraditional sources in terms of doing this work. So it's you know, it's an exciting time, and we have the opportunity to really push the governments in making some progress on some exciting areas.
yeah, thank you for that, Taryn. I'll definitely take a look. Farah wants to know, as mentioned in the presentation, that under 5 deaths are rising. May I know which countries are mostly affected?
I think I'll have to with specific stats, I'll have to like circle back to you on that, unless Darren, you have like statistics in hand for that on child mortality.
Yeah, you can take a look at the report. Actually, I mean, in terms of where under 5 deaths are rising, I think the biggest impact is around conflict affected countries. So, and because there's an increasing number of conflict affected countries in the last few years, that's where a lot of the numbers have driven upwards. So unfortunately, that's a lot of them.
Randy's question. This feels like a business as usual action approach when there have been major changes in the world. Do we need to be more imaginative in how we go about advocacy? How do we change our approach?
Do you want to go, Hector, and then I can jump in, or?
I'm happy for you to go and I can jump.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. We've talked about this a lot of the team as well. I mean, there's kind of like the way that I'm thinking about it, there's two sides to it. There's the issues, which is where we're looking at what needs support the most right now, and that's honestly where we've landed on a lot of like the basics are still what we need to be pushing on when we're talking basic things like immunizations and nutrition, education, like those are the areas that we're losing progress in and is having kind of that impact on the child death. So we do feel strongly about pushing on those issues, especially as a lot of governments have retreated from them. I think one of the ways that we've been talking about how do we go about it differently kind of goes back to where traditional donors are retreating. We don't want to like let up on Canada on what they're doing. There is a role we believe for Canada to play in terms of international assistance. We are doing a lot of thinking, especially in, for example, the campaign we're going to be doing around research and development is like, who are the non-traditional folks, whether it's private sector and others that could have a big impact on the issues. And there are a lot of opportunities in that space. So doing some thinking around who can we bring into the fold there. One of the other pieces, which I would love to do more on, and to be honest, this is just a capacity piece, and that in terms of finding funding for it, is more of like the financial architecture, just the inequity that exists in our global financial systems in areas like debt and taxation. And that is kind of sometimes international assistance flows are a lot lower in terms of for example, of what countries are paying on debt. So I would love to do more on that. And I'm trying to figure out where we can find some resources, because I do think that's another area that's a little bit non-traditional, but I think needs pushes from folks like results. But would love to, if anybody has any ideas on Randy's question, because I think it's a great one in terms of what we can be doing a little bit differently, or if any Hector or others want to jump in as well. But
yeah, again, like great question, Randy. One of the other things, in addition to whatever Taryn mentioned, we're doing is like adapting our messaging. Like, yes, we used to like mention solidarity a lot more. Right now, we're still including solidarity, but we're trying to fit a lot of our issue areas within the priorities identified by the Carney government. Like global health is, again, like I mentioned, global health is still security, like it's still trade, so we're trying to fit in a lot of the issue areas within those priorities. The other thing is, again, going back to like Canada has historically played a leading role in global health through initiatives like all the initiatives we've been advocating for, just reminding them that we're losing progress on that front. I think it's something we've also been considering in our advocacy. And the other thing, sorry, someone else. Oh, and the third thing is we are also trying to build a domestic to global connection by reaching out to departments we haven't traditionally engaged with. So right now we also like considering like the defense department or the trade department as well, or the science and innovation team as well. So we are like trying to engage with non-traditional donors too.
Yeah, so you sort of covered this, but Tiffany brought up a really good point. Some research is suggesting that multilateral organizations are making significant progress as countries are pulling away. There's thoughts that funding may come from larger funders like the Gates Foundation in the future. Would results consider advocating or reaching out to foundations in addition to the government?
Yeah, it's another good question. I mean, we actually work there's a lot of expectations right now. We saw that last year of foundations to fill the gaps from donors. I think a lot of the foundations are kind of saying, no, we don't have, like, we can never fill that gap, but they are stepping up in a lot of areas. And so I found, especially this past year, we've been working closely with many of them in both, whether or not we're funded by those foundations, because we do get funding from foundations, but also as kind of like partners in advocacy in some senses, whether it's working, for example, around the work on the Child Nutrition Fund that we were all engaging on. We were also working with foundations to encourage Canada to commit to that. So I think there's roles we can play there. One of the areas that I think is untapped a little bit and where is Canadian foundations, who honestly are largely absent from the global space. And that's an area, if anybody has any ideas on how we can be pushing Canadian philanthropy to get more involved in what's happening globally and to see those intersections, would be really helpful. Because right now, it's often in like both that fund results, it's all international outside of Canada foundations, but also just for foundations to be more active in the space generally. Other than the MasterCard Foundation, who do a lot of work, there's definitely a gap there. So if folks have kind of ideas on that lens coming up, would be helpful to hear more.
Michael has his hand raised. Go ahead, Michael.
Michael, you're muted.
You're muted. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. I was just going to add to what Randy raised the issue, because we've been discussing this for the last few days. And in terms of what could be done, yes, we are in a situation that is very untraditional. We are honestly, in a very unusual times, considering or comparing to the last few years. And this unusual times is going to demand us also some kind of a very creative approach. Not that what we've been doing is discarded, but what can we do in addition to what we've been doing for all these years? Is something that I think, we need to really think about. I just have some ideas that I like to throw here. And I think the presentation we had was really wonderful. There was a lot of statistical information, and many politicians or philanthropists love statistics because it's quantitative, it's clear, it's right in your face kind of thing. So we could actually come up from that statistics that is available to us, some kind of we used to call it way back the elevator time. If you have just like 2 minutes, what would you say to a person to convince him or her, to donate or contribute to results? So if we were to come up with like half a page, and it would be in the face of the people to say, what would be the impact? I'm just, we can use all kinds of language of not funding or the impact of cutting funds. And so instead of saying this is how many people were saved, it's already there, that's wonderful, but we say if we cut the funding as it is now, this is what is going to happen. Poverty is going to increase by health like TB, malaria, HIV, this nutrition. This is what's going to happen to this. It's just to show the impacts on poverty in general, or nutrition, health, girls' education, access to education in general, world peace, even movement of people, because this has a lot of implication. When things happen in countries, people have to do something to get out of that situation. And we have to probably statistically show this is the impact of not doing what we have been doing. But like a very half page in your face, clearly stating, the impact. The other point I have is maybe it would be a good idea to just sometimes, look at things a bit differently, because, we all agree we are in very unusual times. Maybe we can have a focus group made up of, volunteers, but led by staff and with staff, like a focus group that would come with some creative ideas in, around the areas that we're talking right now, that would also have clear issues that would help to deal with the times that we're in. Because this is not a Canadian issue only. This is a global issue. Europe is doing the same thing. It's not only Trump, except Trump has openly said no US aid, but other countries are doing the same thing, including UK, which were almost at 2+% of international aid. So this is why the impact is going to be huge. We've been saving millions of lives. By not doing this, it's going to take us back to probably 20 years of what was happening in this world. So that focus group probably may help to come up with some clear goals on how we conduct ourselves, the activities that we need to have. Like we can have a day where we say, meet your MP across Canada. We will have a day, just what we have, like a malaria day. We'll have a blitz day of meet your MPs. All of us the same day will have a day designated for all of us across Canada, the volunteers, to meet MPs, kind of thing. So we can call it a National Day of Meet Your MP or whatever. And then meet with your like-minded organization as well. A day where we meet with like-minded organization, also with community members that we have been interacting with. So just, all kinds of things, because it's really been very stressful when I've been thinking about these things this last, because even when our own prime minister that we think, who said clearly that he was not going to whatever, that just was very unsettling, very unsettling.
Michael, yeah, we can actually even discuss this even after this call. Yeah, I'm gonna let Hector and Taryn comment on that.
Sure,
Those
no,
were
I
good
think those are
points.
great ideas. I would yes, the more ideas you guys have, the better. If you want to do a focus group. I was going to say that the International Learning Exchange, to your point on it's not just Canada, I think that would be, if for those that are able to join that call, that's going to be with grassroots across the different results across the world. I think I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation to see what's working in other countries and what's not. I think one of the most important things we can do is grow our movement. So your point around we need more people to be telling politicians that they care about these issues, because the issue why aid was cut was because they were not hearing enough that this was an issue Canadians cared about enough, right? They were hearing about people were concerned about defense and security, and that's why it was increased. And so I think there is some work we need to be doing on bringing more people into the fold. And even if that's like what you were saying, Michael, in terms of doing outreach to other organizations that may not, like they can keep their own work, but like, could they take action with us for 1 month or something like that? So just be thinking, I'm very conscious of that, and we're doing some work on our end too. And that's why we're doing so much advocacy training with other organizations and all of that, because I think that is one of the solutions. Is we really need people to not be apathetic and check out because of all the things that are happening in the world. So how can we make them energized and want to take action and show the politicians? So there's lots of different ideas. I mean, there's good ones in the chat. We do, yeah, like, so I mean, I don't know, we don't have time to go through it all, but yes, celebrities, like lots of those ideas. We're definitely thinking about them too, but let's keep this conversation going, because I think it's a really important time, as you're saying.
All right. Yeah, thank you for your question, Michael, and thank you for that, Taryn. Just a quick question from Sreejan. How can we engage with and advocate with non-traditional donors you mentioned, Taryn?
Yeah, so I mean, like I think like to the point around like building the movement, like thinking about like whether it's organizations or companies that might have an interest in the work that we're doing and seeing if they would be interested in collaborating. For some of the work around like, and that will come up on the piece around research and development and science innovation. As Ekta said, we're going to be doing potentially some actions directed at not traditional just Global Affairs Canada, but how can we get other departments and other decision makers to kind of see the value of investing in global health. And I think we have a strong case there when we look as particular, about TB, but all sorts of issues that have an impact on Canada as globally. So happy to kind of like stay tuned on that one. But if you do have ideas on like I said, other organizations, networks, even like private sector that might have an interest in our work, that would be really useful to hear as well. But we're also doing some thinking on our end.
Yeah, thank you for that, Taryn. So as for questions, we can't take any more on the call anymore, but Ekta, we'll get back to you in the chat. Moving forward, firstly, thank you all for the questions. It's nice to see everyone so engaged. Peace does have an interactive activity for all of us, so I'll leave it to Peace now.
Thank you so much, Kasim. Yeah, so I love this to see how the chat is so vibrant. This is so good. Michael's feedback, Michael, I always like to hear from you. Bernice and Michael Graydon. So Ekta will respond to you via email some of these questions, and Mika as well. So I will take these questions and then we'll get the answers to you all. But right now we are going to jump into an interactive activity about the EPIC model. And I can see some faces of people who really know a lot about EPIC. So yes, it's a competition, but there's no prize at the end. It's just to feel good. It's a friendly game. I'm going to put in the chat the link you can access. You can access Menti with the link that I just put there. And if it asks you for a code, just put the code that is also in the chat. And just in 1 second, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, let me know if you see my screen. First of all, can you all access it?
Yes.
Good. So, so in the next 15 minutes, you will learn how to structure a short, persuasive message and practice turning facts into something people actually remember. So, let's get started. When someone talk to you about an issue, what makes you stop and listen? So, just put anything that you feel like really works for this. And then you have 20 seconds for this game, for this first question. I see very good ones. Personal story, passion, engaging tone, facts, a hook, being genuine, heartwarming. So what you're naming is exactly why we use the epic model. It's the structure plus story. I'm going to go to the next question. So this is my favorite. What does the EPIC acronym stand for? So is it emphasize, prioritize, influence, and communicate, or engage, problem, inform, and call to action? Or is it engage, persuade, inspire, commit, or explain, propose, implement, and conclude? So you have 10 seconds left for this one. Okay, let's see what we've got. So it is engage, state a problem, inform solution, and the call to action. Next slide is which part of EPIC is this? As devastating as COVID-19 has been for Canadians, no one has been hit harder than those living in low-income countries. What do you think? Is this engaging, or is it stating a problem, informing solution, or is it a call to action? Good. 10 seconds left. Good. So the correct answer is engaging. Next is which epic components are missing from this message? Millions more people are falling into extreme poverty, especially women and children, and the global system are under strain. So you can select multiple ones for this one. Ten seconds left. Sweet. Let's see what we have. So yes, we do not engage the audience. We don't inform solution, and there is no call to action. So without a call to action, even a powerful fact doesn't lead to change. Next question. So which message are you more likely to remember tomorrow? 5.2 million children died from preventable causes in 2019, or while volunteering, I watched a mother lose her newborn because a vaccine wasn't available. Ten seconds left. Correct answer is while volunteering, I watched a mother lose her newborn because a vaccine wasn't available. This is the type of questions that really, this is something that when you hear it, the next day you remember. And then if you're writing if someone is pitching this to you, you will feel like this is really leading to, like we need to do something. This is a really good call to action. Next is, in one or two sentences, write one part of an epic. Engage, state a problem, inform solution, or a call to action for an issue you care about. So for this one, you have 2 minutes to write something that you feel this is like a compelling message. You don't have to write the whole epic, but choose one of it that you can just put out there. So this exercise is just about to really remind ourselves about how can we communicate this message powerfully. So you have 2 minutes for this one. So remember, engaging is like a hook, something that will hook your audience, stating the problem. Think about it like, what's wrong? What's happening? Why is this important? And then informing solution is about what works. What have we seen? What have worked in the past? What can work in the future? And then the call to action is, are you asking them to take a decision? Is it a yes or no? I'm going to take action or not? Nice. I like what I'm seeing. The rise in the cost of living makes it harder for families to get out of poverty. Good. Plastic pollution is shocking our ocean and harming marine life. Join community cleanups and reduce single-use plastic to protect our planet's future. Great. In many low-income countries, preventable illness continue to cause high rates of death because communities lack equitable access to basic healthcare services. You can start your LTE tomorrow with this one. Imagine buying a cup of coffee. What if I told you that $2 could be the difference between life and death? Wow. You're already hooking me up to like learn what is it about? What are you talking about? So these are very good points you're putting in here. You're putting very good sentences that really hook us, that really engages us. Some of it state the problem. I can see some really stating the solution, like informing the solution. And yeah, let's see if we have something about the call to action. Percent of the world chronically undernourished population. This is good. Okay, so time's up for this one. But these are very good sentences that you're putting here, and these really constitute an epic. So sometimes when you're writing, for instance, a letter to the editor, because you can use the epic to reach out to a member of parliament to pitch your MP about something that you really care about. But you can also use it for a social media post and any message that you really want to communicate. I find that this really helps me to stay concise and focus on what am I communicating here. I would suggest take time and do it, all of you, like writing a letter to the editor. The first time you write an LT, sometimes it takes you like 4 hours, but then you get used to it. And then it starts taking you 30 minutes to an hour because you know these muscles have been flexed. So this is a very good exercise of training. How can you use the epic to communicate a message powerfully? So after this activity, this is the last question. How confident do you feel about using an epic to communicate your message powerfully? I like the very confident one. We are starting strong here. Good. Wonderful. So 10 seconds left for this one. Good. So yeah. So here's what I'm gonna suggest. For people who feel like they're not yet confident, we usually support volunteers to write LTEs. Please, if you want someone to review it, feel free to send it to us. Use action at Results Canada. I know that there are volunteers even here who are willing to read LTEs and provide feedbacks. So if you want a peer-to-peer support, let us know. We'll have someone help you. And for people who feel very confident, take a moment, let us know so that we can actually ask you to come on the calls and explain to others how you write these LTEs and how you use your epic, and just so that we can support each other. This is really part of that community building, and it's important that we keep helping each other, lifting each other's up. With that said, because this is not a competition with a final result, I'm going to stop sharing. And yeah, I see time's up. So what we're gonna do is I will create breakout rooms and then you will be going into your the different rooms that assign the name of the group you belong to. Go to that room. In case you don't see your group there, just go in a room that says no group yet, and then I myself or someone Organiat will be joining to support you and find out how we can help you enter a group in your city. So I'm going to open. Let me first stop.
Yeah, so welcome back, everyone. I hope everything went well in your breakout rooms. I know for myself it did. Um, any questions about the call to action? Or any just thoughts on how your breakout session went in general? You could put in the chat box too. Okay, it seems to
So I
be.
can share.
Oh, thank you.
I was with the Francophone group, and we're just brainstorming on ways we could like engage the Francophone, especially the Quebec side, because they were telling me that they were having trouble getting their letters published.
Yeah.
So we were, trying to find out how to like build relations with editors, like try to reach out to different editors. And also trying to reach out to different editors out of Quebec that publish in French. So yeah, that's what we.
Yeah, thank you for that. Sounds fun. I know for myself, I met a couple new volunteers, so it was nice to gauge how they felt about the first action kickoff call. So it was really fulfilling. Any other thoughts?
I want to comment on that getting published as a francophone. I know that it's actually hard because there's a few editors who pick like you have to target a French newspaper to get published there, yeah, especially if you're writing your LTE in French. But one suggestion would be maybe looking at published LTEs. And I know that some volunteers have published in French. I know La Nouvelle-Écosse newspaper, they usually publish a lot of LTEs. Adil has published many times there in French. So like just looking at some published LTEs and looking at the newspapers and targeting those newspapers can help a lot because that means they do publish things issues on international development. And also just mentioning that the Volunteer Voices is there. And we've published everyone who sent us their LTEs last year because they were very good LTEs. You can all find them on our website. I'm just going to post the link in the chat. In case you don't get published, always send it to the Volunteer Voices, whether it's in French or English, we will publish it. So I'm just going to put it here in the chat so you can access some of the papers that were published last year. Yeah, go ahead, Kasim.
Yeah, it's just some final announcements. I know we're running low on time. Don't want to go too over. Again, for our group leaders, please don't forget to submit your monthly reports. For volunteers, please remember to report your actions on the website. And again, please register the February action kickoff call. And just a reminder, on February 8th, 4 p.m. Eastern, make sure to join the Results International Learning Exchange to meet virtually with volunteer advocates from Results US, Results UK, and Results Australia. So with that being said, thank you everyone for attending. And yeah, have a good night.